Hi, and welcome to Image Critique with Bryan and Rob. I'm Bryan,
I'm Rob Noel.
and today we have a great maternity image that we are going to dive into.
And I'm going to start things off. So, um, beautiful, beautiful draping of the fabric. I know there's a lot of hit and miss involved with this. You probably have an assistant off to the side throwing this thing up in the air and trying to get the captures. And of course, you got to get the best possible capture of this, as well as making sure that the model is cooperating and that she hasn't changed her movement and so forth. So there's a lot of hit and miss involved in that. A couple of things that sort of strike me right away with a shot like this. Doing maternity portraits can be sort of the same thing over and over and over again. It's mom holding her stomach,
Right.
looking down at her stomach,
Right.
all these various things. And so I really applaud photographers that are looking to take those kinds of maternity portraits to the next level and make them more exciting and more interesting and so forth. So I guess that's what we're doing here. I feel like this whole area of the shot is kind of really blown out and kind of starting to get almost washed out a little bit in terms of, like, I understand that there's some sun really coming into this area, but I feel like we're losing the saturation in the fabric here quite a bit because of that. So I'm not sure I'm super keen on that. There's another thing that's very easy to fix in Photoshop, but it kind of bothers me in this shot, is that she's got one color in her shorts and a different color in here. And I really think it would make a lot of sense to match the color of the two fabrics so it looks like it's really one outfit instead of two outfits. Just a small thing, but I think it would improve the shot just a little bit. Also, again, me and being centered in a photograph, I feel like, if I take this picture and just kind of divide it down the middle on both sides, it's like, yeah, she's pretty much dead center here. And I feel as though we could change that and also think about these giant trees that are very much in focus. This picture, this tree is pretty sharp. This one is less sharp. This one's starting to fall out. And I really feel like a picture like this, she should be very isolated against the background. There's just too much of a busy background going on here with her. And I feel like pulling her away from I almost feel like this area back here, this area back here would have been a great background for her, and keep her in the foreground and let all those trees go way out of focus in the background. I'm also going to mention that for me, this just feels very posy, like very, very, what's the word I'm looking, contrived in terms of pose. She's an expectant mother. She's out in the woods. She's on this stool that's sort of in the middle of the woods. And so all of these elements together are starting to feel just a little bit contrived. And I feel as though we want to, when we're creating these kinds of beautiful portraits, we want to make them feel less contrived. It is kind of strange to find a stool in the woods. Right. So if you're going to do that, maybe, is there a way we can do it where everything doesn't feel so static and posed?
Right.
So those are my main thoughts for this shot. I think, beautiful styling, lovely woman. I'm not sure this stool is the best prop for the shot, but I'm being a little nitpicky there.
Yeah.
Overall, it's a lovely portrait, and it just, to me, has, a few technical things that I think we need to look at.
Awesome.
I'm sure the client loves it.
Now I'm curious. Now this is more just a sort of a hypothesis than anything. I'm actually not convinced there's not an off-camera flash happening back there that's lighting this from the back. It may not be, actually, because I'm seeing some light up here, but there's some really strong light coming in over here, and I'm not seeing that reflected on the ground, which makes me think that it is.
I just wonder if that's the sunlight coming in, maybe.
And I guess so with that, like I guess to that comment, I actually wonder if it would have been perhaps more effective if the model was flipped, because right now you've got this bright sun or flash or whatever it is that's hitting the back of her head here, which makes her hair and like the sort of frizzies in her hair the sort of most well-lit part of the image. And so that's just a bit of a concern. I agree with your comment on the stool. I was, I generally kind of have this feel that's like, why would we find a beautiful, like, ornate couch in the middle of a field or in the middle of a forest? It kind of feels out of place for me.
It can work.
It can,
right?
Totally. It totally can work. Yes.
We've seen shots where you look at it, it's like, okay, that's completely incongruous, but it's still cool.
Right. But with this particular kind of image where you've got this beautiful flow happening and you've got these long gowns, I almost like the idea of again, with that whole contrived thing, giving a reason for why is the dress doing that. Like, I love the shots when you've got the woman or the model that's kind of, she got her hands out, and even though your assistant probably helped fluff it,
Right.
at least her hands are kind of giving the effect that it was her hands that made that fluff. Whereas in
Right.
here, she's very static. She's very stagnant, yet it's like this, gust of wind just suddenly came and swept up this
That's
thing.
the key. If
Yeah.
we got the sense that this was being blown by wind,
Right.
her hair would be blown as well,
Totally.
right?
Yeah, totally. So it just kind of creates this weird tension there. I agree with Rob about, like, you got sharpness. I almost wonder if you would have just pulled her forward a little bit more and just shot, with a wider aperture, you maybe would have been able to sort of, get those out of focus a bit more and kind of help with that. I think the toning on the image is really nice. I like the tones is very soft and elegant in here. This is very also soft, so I like that. I think it works well with the red. The red stands out a ton, right? Other small thing is, I mean, she's looking up. It sort of, I don't know, in a weird way, it leads me to wonder why. Why is she looking up? What's going on up there? It does bring my eye away from the frame, whereas I think in a maternity portrait, it's supposed to kind of be about mama and her belly. So I just wonder if it would have been better if she was kind of looking down in more of like a thoughtful pose, as opposed to like this like kind of glare into nowhere really. But again, these are getting into very stylistic choices too, right? Like maybe for you this was about the dress, so that would be sort of a different approach there. But those are just some other thoughts. I do love this, like this sort of very cool dreamy effect here. It's backlit. I think it's got some neat tones. But again, I think we want to give the image a bit more purpose in that sense.
I think my biggest problem with this material, and again, like the way it's draping is phenomenal.
Yeah.
My only concern is, if I can just steal that pen for a second, is that the more I look at this picture, the more I feel like this is what's drawing all of my eye.
Yeah.
It's in the brightest part of the image, really. It's got all this bright area around it way off to the left. And so shouldn't she be the primary center of interest in the photograph? And this should be secondary? And actually on this portrait, I find because this is so bright and so big that it actually takes more attention away from mom than I think we probably want. And again, maybe, placement of her in the frame and background could sort of change that. But I feel as though if she had been put against the brightest part of the area, it'd almost like be a halo glow around her, as opposed to the halo glow being around the fabric.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for tuning into this image critique. If you would like to have your images critiqued, come and send us a direct message on Instagram, and we'll give you the link to submit your images. Bye for now.